everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and we're back for another Sunday Sew Along. We're doing a whole month of economical sewing tips and tricks and what that looks like and different ways we can save. And I am going through the sewing book, or the pattern book from Cashmerette, called Ahead of the Curve, and it's a book I already owned. That's one way that we can save money, by using things that we already own and then stretching that and making that into many different things. So I am going through one of the books that I own because I had not made anything out of this book yet, and that seems wasteful to me. So I'm going through and making, for these tutorials, 4 of the 5 patterns and doing a different hack on them. You don't have to use these patterns. You can use any pattern you want. Today I'm going to be tackling the Foxhill dress. This is a dress that is meant for knits, and for specifically stable knits, so like your ponties, your scubas / neoprene, that sort of fabrics. So if you have your own knit dress that you really enjoy, even if it's like a jersey knit dress, you can use this same tutorial to do the hacking as well. So this dress comes with a nice little short sleeve, which is not bad for the cooler weather because you can easily put that under jackets and cardigans and all that sort of thing. I love wearing ponte dresses when it gets a little bit cooler because they're just a little bit thicker. But for today, I thought it would be fun to, number one, I'm going to show you how to lengthen, if you already have a short sleeve that fits into the bodice, how to make it into a long sleeve. But I'm also going to be showing you how to hack that long sleeve into a bishop sleeve, I guess you would want to call this. I even put a little cuff on it. I'll put footage of me in the dress. It's a pretty easy little hack. This one's a little bit more involved than last week's, but yeah, it's still a pretty easy little hack, and I love how it turned out. I am using a rayon nylon spandex ponte from Style Makers for this dress. I think she calls it their classic ponte. I will link it down below. She always has it in stock and in many different colors, and I've used it on quite a few different projects in some different colors, and it's a really great quality ponte. And it has yeah, it just works well especially for dresses because it holds its shape because it's stable, but then it has a little bit of drape for like the swooshier skirts. So it's a great fabric to use if you're wanting to make your own Foxhill dress or something similar. As always, if you guys have any questions on how I did this hack, leave it down below. I'll answer those as soon as possible. And just another way to stretch our pattern stashes and to make them do more for us so that we can, you know, maybe not spy all the patterns. I know that's very tempting. Not that you should never buy any patterns, but just a way to use what we have. You know, the whole reduce, reuse, recycle, we're doing that, and we are, you know, expanding what we currently have in our pattern stashes, and these are just some fun ways to do that. All right, that is all I have for today. If you do enjoy this type of content and would like to help support the channel, I do have a Ko-fi account that's like a virtual tip jar. It's linked down below. All the proceeds from that go right back into the channel for maintenance on equipment. So I've recently had to get editing software, all that kind of stuff that really helps go into the channel for these educational type videos. So if you'd like to support that, I do have that link down below. Okay, I think that's all I've got for today. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday, and I will see you guys again on Tuesday. Have a good one. Bye. Okay, this week we're going to be looking at the Foxhill dress that's also in the Head of a Curve. This is a dress, a fit and flare dress, kind of fit and flare. It's a fitted bodice with princess seam bodice with a gored skirt and a little short sleeve, meant for stable knit fabrics. So like your pontes, scubas, that sort of thing. I am going to be, I love a good knit fit and flare dress. They're just very comfortable in the fall, but I want to do something a little different with the sleeve. Now I think the short sleeve is going to be fantastic for, you know, wearing under layers and, you know, if you want to put a cardigan over it or a blazer or whatever. But I wanted to do a more dramatic sleeve for mine. And so I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to do that. Now I've already traced off this sleeve and put it aside, so I have a copy of the short sleeve already. And now we're going to alter this one to be a long sleeve and to feature, to be a big billowy sleeve. So we're going to put a cuff on it even. So first I'm going to show you how we are going to turn this into a long sleeve. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is you need to measure from the top of your arm, right at the top of your shoulder, down to your finished wrist. And that length for me is 23 inches. So that's an important measurement that we need to have. And here at the top of my sleeve, the seam allowance for this pattern is 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just gonna mark in right here, my seam allowance, and I'm gonna make a line perpendicular to my grain line. That's like pretty much right there at the center of my sleeve. And we're gonna go, just do a line all the way down. I'm gonna go off my paper here. Yeah, that's not gonna be 23. Okay. Let me tape on some paper. Trying to use up scraps. I'm also trying to have paper underneath here so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. So now we just want to make sure that this line is, for me, needs to be 23 inches long. Which is my finished length of sleeve, which is why I'm starting at the seam line there and not at the cut line. All right, so down to 23 inches, which is right there. Then I want to do a line that just goes straight across the bottom. It's going to be important here in just a second. All right, so first we're making a long sleeve. So this is just going to be a regular fitted long sleeve. Again, this is knit fabric, so you have a lot more leeway. It's a lot easier. So I just want to, at my wrist, and again, this is where I want the finish. We haven't added any hem allowance on here. I'm just going to measure a comfortable around my wrist. Remember, this is knit, so I don't need it to be like really big. Like it's going to easily, I mean, I feel like 7.5 inches is going to give me some room. I feel like 8. That might be okay. I'm going to do 8 inches for my wrist. So what I'm going to do is go 4 inches on each side of my center line for my sleeve, which is right there and right there. And then, folks, I should be using a different color. It's just as easy as going from our known point here of our sleeve down to this mark. Oh, there's the mark. Barely works. You may have to have a longer ruler to get you down to your point. So there we go. So my blue, this is my knit long sleeve that will fit into this Foxhill dress. At this point, to add in a hem allowance, all we're going to do is make a line an inch longer. I like inch hem allowances in my knit things. You can make that whatever you want. You're the designer. And now I'm just going to follow that side seam of that sleeve. So now, oh, that is so, these pins are awful. Look at my hands. So now we have this jog. So when this gets folded up for the hem, you'll have enough length there at the bottom to fold back up into the top. And there you have it. You'll just need to cut that out and you've got your long sleeve. Okay? Which we could totally leave this like that. That would also be really easy for fitting into cardigans and blazers and that sort of thing. But we want to do a statement sleeve. So the first thing I need to decide is how long I want my cuff. I want my cuff 3 inches wide. So 3 inches of nice fitted cuff, which I've decided, that 8 inches is perfect. I may go down to 7.5 just so it's a nice fitted cuff. So I want to, so in theory you think, okay, well I just want to go, cut my sleeve off 3 inches up from here. But I'm making a nice billowy sleeve and I want some extra length for it to actually billow, but only about an inch. So I'm going to come up 2 inches from my hem here. So even though I'm putting on a 3-inch cuff, I'm only going to come up 2 inches because I want that extra inch to help the sleeve billow up and out a little bit of ease, vertical ease. So now I'm just going to cut. Obviously, if you wanted to keep your long sleeve pattern intact, trace it. So I'm just going to cut it right off, right there. Just throw that away. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to draw in here at the top our seam allowance, and on this pattern it happens to be 3/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to go around and mark in my sewing line or seam allowance, however you want to phrase that. Sometimes I use those interchangeably and I think I get confusing, so I apologize. The nice thing about doing these kind of alterations too, I mean, they're not that like necessarily harder on wovens, but on your knit patterns, you just have a little bit more leeway because of the stretch. Stretch is not only forgiving to wear, it's forgiving to sew. Okay, so there's my seam allowance. All right, so now I'm going to be it's called slashing and spreading my sleeve. Which this is just, I mean, I don't know, this is very, very cool. Okay, so one of the places I'm going to slash and spread is, oh, you also need to decide, okay, so there's 2 different ways we could do this. We could completely cut this up and move things aside to where you're going to gather both the sleeve cap and the hem of your sleeve. Or what I'm going to do is I'm just wanting to spread the bottom really wide so that the top of my sleeve is going to fit in per normal. And then I'm just going to have a, what is that called? I guess that would be a bell. No, not a bell sleeve. I don't know why sleeve names just don't want to fit in my head. So when we're doing this, I'll tell you if you wanted a gathered sleeve cap that gathers into the top, what you would need to do versus what I'm going to be doing here. I just don't particularly, not that I don't like gathers at my shoulder, it's just I can get top heavy very easily. So any added details at my shoulders can make me look top heavier than I am. So for what it's worth. Okay. That being said, okay, so we have our center line here. Now I'm just going to do, I want to slash and spread this at a few different spots. So I'm going to go 2 inches over, marking a line, and then I'm going to go 2 inches over on this side, marking a line. And then I think I'll do one more 2 inches over. And go all the way up into your seam allowance because you'll see why in a second. All right. So now, very, very messy. I'm just going to start at the hem here, and I'm going to cut on each of these slash and spread lines up to, but not through, my seam allowance that's up here at the top of the sleeve. Now, if I wanted the gathering at the sleeve cap, I would actually go all the way through because we want the fullness at the cap as well. Now we're going to go, it kind of looks like an octopus. Now I'm going to go from the top down. So this is going to change the shape of the sleeve cap, but you won't have to gather anything in this way. It's just changing the shape of it. Your sewing line is still the same length. Okay. So now we need to determine how much width we want at the bottom. And we're going to insert it equally into our little insertions here that we're doing. Now, if you had cut all the way through and you were wanting the fullness at the sleeve cap as well, I would just start with one piece, one of these center pieces, either this one or this one, tape it down, and then you're just adding equal length all the way, from the top to the bottom in between each of your strips. Just make sure you keep them in order. And then it's just a matter of truing the cap and then truing the hem like we're going to do on this one. I hope that makes sense. All right, we want pretty similar widths here. So I think, I want it to be dramatic, but not like, it is a Ponte, so I don't want it to be like gigantic. So I think I'm just going to add, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I want extra? I think I'm going to do 1.5 inches at the bottom. So I'm going to tape just my first piece down here. Kind of move all that out of the way so I don't tape it down yet. This does require a lot of tape. But changing sleeves up is such an easy and fun way to get more out of your pattern. Okay, I've just measured. I'm now adding 1.5 inches. So now I'm going to tape this side of this insertion. Lots of tape for the pattern hacking. Hey. And then so on and so forth. So then I'm going to make sure and add another 1.5 inches here. So I'm just going to go all around the sleeve here with all of my little insertions and just add 1.5 inches here at the bottom all the way over. And then I'll meet you right back here and we'll finish this up. All right, once all of your insertions are in, obviously your hem is much longer now than it was before. So now we are going to just true this up really quickly. You could use if you can find a good like curve here with your hip curve, or you could just freehand it. It's just really a matter of connecting all of the insertions. Okay, so there we go. Now we do need to add in our seam allowance because, we just cut the sleeve. We don't have a seam allowance on here, which we're going to add 3/8 of an inch. And then the last thing that we're going to need to do is make our cuff, which is just going to be a rectangle. Okay, so for our cuff, and I'm just going to do it right here at the bottom, I think, am I going to be able to do it at the bottom? Yep, I think so. All right, so like I mentioned, I wanted my cuff 3 inches wide. So I'm just going to be sewing a tube and then folding it in on itself. I'll be gathering all of this so that it fits into that tube. I want mine to be 3 inches wide, so I need 3 inches plus 3 inches is 6 inches, and then I need the seam allowance on both ends because those will be folded on top of each other. So that'll be another 3/4 of an inch. I don't know if I have room to do this here or not. Maybe. Well, we'll just get a new piece of paper. Making this difficult. Okay, we'll move that out of the way. All right, so again, I want it to be tall, 6 3/4, because that is the height to be doubled in on itself, which again, once this gets folded in half. And you can mark a halfway. That's kind of a nice notch to have. So at 3 3/8 will be our halfway point. And then I wanted it to be finished 7.5 inches around my wrist to be nice and fitted. Plus, okay, so 7.5. Plus I need seam allowances on each side so that it can be joined there under, under the wrist, which would be an extra 3/4 of an inch. So that is 8 1/4. Sorry, I know some of you, I start spouting off math and the eyes glaze over, and I totally, totally get it. All right, so then down here, it's going to be 6 3/4 on this end because it's a rectangle. And at 3 3/8, I'll make a note there for a notch, and then we just finish it up. So there we have it. And then we can make our grain line. Let's see, we want it to be stretchy, so we need the grain line to go this way, the vertical length, so that it stretches around the wrist. Okay, so this is a cuff, and we're gonna cut 2. And then when this gets sewn, you'll sew these short ends together, and then the whole thing, once those are sewn, will get folded in on itself, and that'll make your cuff. So hopefully that makes sense, the way it goes around your wrist. You will have to gather your sleeve to get it in there, though. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions down below. And I hope you give this one a try. Again, sleeves make such a difference in extending what you can do with the pattern. It just makes a big difference. You can just really change the look with a sleeve change. All right, that's all I got for today, guys. See you next time.